What's up, everybody? This is Entendre, and in this episode we're going to talk about granular synthesis. So, I have a sample from my world music sample pack, which I'll link in the description. It's just a jaw harp, and we're going to be loading that into some different granular synthesizers to show you today. So first off, we have Granulator II, and I've already loaded the sample in here. You can just click and drag it in. And so right off the bat, it sounds like this. Now I can adjust the level here and the grain size. So that's the idea of granular synthesis, is that you're cutting up the sample into various grains, and they can be different lengths starting at different positions and rearranged in different ways. So let's go ahead and do some more examples to give you an idea what I'm talking about. So if I turn up this spray knob, it's going to move around the start points. Whereas if it's more down, it's consistent. So that can be interesting for getting more noisy or fluttery effects. You can also change the file position using this knob. Now if you want to automate that, you can use scan or the LFO. So we'll turn on scan. If I turn down the spray, that'll be more consistent as it scans through. Which is a pretty interesting effect. You can also change the curve here, so that was kind of easing out, but you can have it kind of ease in or just be more linear, straight. And you can adjust the timing of it here as well. Which affects the pitch of the sample. Now, if I wanted to use the LFO, I could just turn that on here, and then you can turn up the LFO amount on the file position, or you can use it for the grain size. We'll turn it off on the grain size for now, and let's just hear what that sounds like. Now we have a 42-second cycle, so it's very slow, but if we turn this down, we can also change the shape, so I could have it do a sine wave pattern. Or backwards. So you can get a ton of really awesome sounds out of that. There's also more random stuff and rectangular. The sample and hold's pretty cool. You can also adjust the grain shape over here. Which you can get a lot of different types of sounds based on the grain shape as well. So let's turn scan back on. So there's a lot of different variations there. You can also use amplitude modulation here. Or even grab a live input and then do granular synthesis with that. But we're not going to cover that in this video, it's a little more advanced. So you can automate that grain size for some really cool effects or randomize it. You could use the LFO. You can turn off retrigger. Pretty unlimited. So also you have this section with the amp envelope, your typical ADSR. You can change the pitch. FM. You can change the FM envelope, and then you can adjust that level here for the envelope. And you have some different filtering options. So that's pretty random sounding, but we could use a more straight LFO and adjust the grain size. So it's very, very powerful, and you can get so many variations from doing minimal adjustments, and of course the type of sample you use will dramatically change it as well. And so that's Granulator 2. Next up we're going to take a look at Reason's grain synth using the Reason Rack plugin. So actually, let's go ahead and reset it first. So reset device, and then we'll drag this in here. And now we can demo this one. So that's the default. It just plays in a forward loop. You can adjust the speed there and the jitter. We can change the level here. Here's your grain length, and it gives you a nice visual representation. You can change the fades on them. And of course you can automate these knobs using the LFOs and whatnot. So if I wanted to, say, use LFO 1 to change the grain length, I could just select, or envelope 1 rather, I can select it here, turn up the level, and then we can say grain length. We can adjust the speed. Or maybe I want to change the rate. So definitely a lot of possibilities there. You can also select different grain algorithms here. So top one is spectral grains. And this is pretty cool, like combining it with spectral kind of additive synthesis. You can play with the formats here. And the snap in this filter. Change the FFT size. So that's very interesting. And then you have this grain oscillator. You can spread out the pan. You have your length there and your spacing here. Also some format control and pitch jitter. You also have long grains, which is what we already looked at. And then you have tape mode, which is more of like a sampler almost. And so if you slow it down or speed it up, it's going to affect the pitch of the sample. And you can play forward and backwards. So Grain is a really nice granular synth from Reason Studios, and I love it. And very cool now that we can use it in Reason 11 using the Reason Rack plugin in Ableton Live. So that brings us to our next synth, which is Palindrome from Glitchmachines. It's also a powerhouse, and so basically I'm just going to drag the same sound in here. You have 4 different samplers. I'm using one at the moment, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this automation. So if I play it back now, it's just looping at the beginning. The grain size is turned all the way down, so if I turn this up, there's also an attack here. So we can also change the start position. So if I want to automate that, I can go into this envelope mode and I can drag this up here, and then it's just going to move it. And I could take a second one and place it here, and let's go ahead and automate that. So you can see the start position changing at the same time as the size. And you can change the milliseconds. You can also add more points if you shift click. I don't think you can do curves in here though, but you can still get pretty fancy. You also have a synced mode, or you can loop it or go into a synced mode here. So it's a very powerful granular synthesizer, and that's just the beginning, because if you get these 4 samplers going, you can actually morph between them using this plotting grid, and you can draw different shapes in there. Right now we're not hearing anything because there's nothing loaded into the other 3 samplers, but you can get very elaborate with your sound design in here. So definitely a very cool synth to check out if you're into granular stuff. That brings us to our next synth, which is also from Glitchmachines, and this is Polygon. So there's also 4 different samplers in this one. I'm going to go ahead and load the same jaw harp sample into the first slot. Just dragging it right there. You can see the waveform appear. And now I can play it back. You can select what part of the sample you want right here using this range. You can also change the length here. And stretch it here. If you turn that off, it's just turning off the grain mode. You can change the grain feed. This up here just changes your view, I believe, or that's the focus. And you can play forward and backward. And of course you have a whole synth of different possibilities with modulation and affecting the sound further with different effects. And that's just one of 4 samplers, so you can get quite involved. That's your pitch adjustment, or your glide amount. You have a pan here, and the pitch fine. So definitely a very powerful instrument, and one worth checking out as well. So that pretty much concludes what I wanted to cover in this video. I hope you got something out of that, and please like and subscribe for future videos, and hit that bell notification icon. Follow me on SoundCloud and Spotify, and until next time, I'm Antandra. Have a wonderful day. Peace.